How good will the Buffalo Bills offense be in 2022? Last year, this was one of the best offenses in the NFL. They lost offensive coordinator Brian Daboll, who is now the head coach of the New York Giants, but Ken Dorsey is going to be replacing him. He has been the quarterback's coach for the Bills since 2019, and he has a very great relationship with Josh Allen. Josh Allen was really happy with the decision for Ken Dorsey to be promoted to OC, and I expect this offense to pick up from where it left off. Josh Allen, to me, last season was the second best quarterback in the NFL behind Aaron Rodgers. If you guys are following me on Instagram, you guys would have known that I did my own All-Pro team, and I had Aaron Rodgers and Josh Allen as my two All-Pros. Josh Allen last year was sensational. He threw for 4,407 passing yards, 36 touchdowns to 15 interceptions. He also had 763 rushing yards, which was second on the team, and had 6 rushing touchdowns. Josh Allen really took his game to another level in 2021. I feel his 2021 campaign was better than his 2020 campaign, which some people may disagree with, but he really carried the Bills on his shoulder in a sense. Because if you were to take away what Josh Allen did on the ground for Buffalo's offense last season, they would have had one of the worst rushing attacks in the NFL. So for Buffalo this year, my biggest question is going to be for Ken Dorsey. How is he going to get this run game going? Because Devin Singletary had 188 carries, 870 rushing yards, led the team, had 7 rushing touchdowns, and averaged 4.6 yards per carry. He's not a terrible running back. It's just that you would love to see way more consistency out of Devin Singletary, because we know at the end of the day, this is a Bills offense that is going to love to pass the football. So you're not expecting Devin Singletary to rush for 150 plus every single game, such as what Derrick Henry does for Tennessee. However, you are looking for a little bit more production out of him. You also have rookie running back James Cook, who I love a lot. I already did a video about him. If you guys haven't seen it already, make sure that you guys go ahead and check that out. But many Bills fans responded to my James Cook segment saying that he's not going to be the RB1. He's more of a gadget player. And I really disagree with those statements, because I think too many people are just looking at the label that James Cook has, which is a running back. James Cook is not a running back. James Cook is a weapon. Buffalo didn't draft James Cook to simply just be a running back. They drafted him for his versatility. You can line him out wide, in the slot, and also in the backfield, because he has a really good skill set when it comes to catching the football. He has natural hands. He is a phenomenal route runner. You don't see too many running backs who have this kind of polish when it comes to route running, such as James Cook. James Cook is going to be a mismatch if Buffalo decides that they want to run more 4 wide or 5 wide sets. You line James Cook outside and you get him matched up against a safety or a linebacker, that's a winnable matchup. So for Buffalo, I really feel when it comes to James Cook that he has the best overall skill set out of all of the running backs on the roster. Devin Singletary can't catch the ball effectively like James Cook can. On top of that, James Cook is also really good when it comes to running the ball outside. I think that he has a little bit more speed than what many people are giving him credit for. The dude ran a 4.42 or 4.43 in this past year's NFL Combine. He also has pretty good acceleration. So I think that there are some Bills fans who are kind of selling James Cook short in a sense. You look at him as just a running back, but I promise you, he wasn't drafted to be just a running back. He was drafted to be a weapon, and I think that he's going to bring a different dimension to that Buffalo Bills offense. You also do have Zach Moss, who had 3.6 yards per carry, 4 touchdowns, and 345 rushing yards. The offensive line improved, even though the offensive line was pretty solid last year. You brought in offensive guard Roger Saffold. Your offensive tackle situations are pretty good. So I expect this offensive line to be pretty good, pick up from where they left off last season, or even improve in a sense. Gabriel Davis, could he be in for a breakout season? He didn't really have a lot of volume in the Bills offense in 2021. He only caught 35 receptions for 549 receiving yards. He had 6 touchdowns. However, he was top 10 in the NFL amongst wide receivers and yards per reception with 15.7. And the reason why many people believe that Gabriel Davis could break out is because if you guys saw his performance in the divisional round and the Bills lost against the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs, the dude went on demon time. He had 8 receptions on 10 targets, 201 receiving yards, and 4 touchdowns while averaging an amazing 25 yards per reception. It was one of the best performances that I've seen out of a wide receiver in the NFL playoffs in recent memory. You guys got to cut me a little bit of slack. I'm sorry, I'm only 20 years old, so I can't recall too many great wide receiver performances in the postseason from the 90s and early 2000s and whatnot. But Gabriel Davis has a really good chance to be a Pro Bowl caliber wide receiver. And that's something that you rarely don't see. You rarely don't see too many teams that have 2 Pro Bowl caliber wide receivers. We already know what Stefon Diggs brings to the table. He pretty much has cemented himself as a top 5, maybe top 3 wide receiver in the league. So with Gabriel Davis being able to be in the mix for more targets with the departure of Cole Beasley and Emmanuel Sanders, he should have a very productive 2022 campaign. Rookie wide receiver Khalil Shakir out of Boise State is somebody who I'm really intrigued in seeing how Ken Dorsey is going to utilize him in this offense. He's super versatile. He was drafted in the 5th round from this past year's NFL draft. He has great hands. He's fantastic after the catch. Even though he may not look as if he's a running back, after the catch, he kind of shows flashes of being a running back trapped in a wide receiver's body, because he is able to break off tackles with ease for some reason. He plays bigger than his frame. He also has a pretty good amount of moves to make you miss. He doesn't just have the ability to run through you, but he can also make you miss with his elusiveness. I think that he has a pretty good skill set to be a serviceable slot receiver his rookie season for Buffalo, but I think that his main role in this offense this season is probably going to be more of a gadget player, because you do have some pretty tough competition that he's going to be competing with during training camp when it comes to that starting slot role. You have Jameson Crowder, who is a really good player. He was just held back by the New York Jets offense. I think that he's one of the better slot receivers in the league, and there were times where Jameson Williams was the best wide receiver, or not even the best wide receiver, the best weapon that the New York Jets had on offense prior to 2021. So you also have Isaiah McKenzie, Marquez Stevenson. You recently just signed Tavon Austin. So you have a good amount of options to choose from when it comes to that slot receiver role. I definitely feel that Jameson Crowder is probably going to be my betting favorite to end up getting the start there, but we're probably going to see a good amount of rotation throughout that slot receiver spot throughout the 2022 NFL season. Tight end is a position that I'm really excited about when it comes to the Bills offense. You have Dawson Knox, who had 9 touchdowns, 49 receptions, and had 587 receiving yards. But you signed O.J. Howard to a 1-year deal. For those of you guys who may not remember who O.J. Howard is, he was a former first-round pick out of Alabama from a couple of years ago. And his career got off to a pretty solid start. However, injuries were a big factor. He couldn't stay on the field. And then once Tom Brady arrived in Tampa, Rock Gronkowski came in town, OJ Howard got pushed down the depth chart. He was behind Gronk, Cameron Braid. And then on top of that, injuries also still played a factor in his role in the Buccaneers offense. So over the last couple of seasons, he kind of has been a non-factor. And many people forget how talented OJ Howard is. If you're talking about the most physically gifted tight ends in the NFL, OJ Howard is definitely in that conversation. He has great speed. He can push the field vertically. All you really need to do is try to keep him healthy and get him a couple of targets. So for Ken Dorsey, are you going to try to run a couple of more 2 tight end sets? Because I just think that with the talent that you have at tight end, with OJ Howard, I would love to see OJ Howard somewhat have a small role in this offense. Okay, I just think that with the kind of talent that he possesses, I think that he's too good to simply just be left on the bench as a backup behind Dawson Knox. I would love to see him have a small factor in this offense because he does possess some traits that could elevate this offense in a sense. He's really good when it comes to making things happen with the ball in his hands because he's not your normal tight end when it comes to speed. He's probably one of the faster tight ends in the game. So if you match him up with a linebacker or a safety, it's a mismatch there. There's not too many linebackers that are going to be able to keep up with his speed. And on top of that, there may not be too many pure coverage safeties that can kind of guard him with his size and his physicality. So I would love to see OJ Howard utilized a little bit more. He never was a great run blocker, but he's not a terrible run blocker. He can give you a little bit there in that department. But OJ Howard is more of somebody who's going to come in on obvious passing downs and maybe try to move him around the offense. He doesn't just have to strictly play tight end. Maybe try to line him up in the slot. Use him as a big slot in certain situations. Use him inside of the red zone. I just think that you can do so much with OJ Howard if you have a really creative offensive coordinator. And maybe I'm being a little bit biased because I am a OJ Howard fan. I was really high on him coming out of Alabama, and he's not bad by any stretch of imagination. The problem with OJ Howard is simply that he couldn't stay on the field, and he kind of got ghosted out of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense over the last couple of years. But when he's able to stay healthy and you get him involved in this offense, he's going to make some things happen. So overall, I expect this Bills offense to still be one of the best in the league. Top 5, no worse than top 10. With James Cook there, I think that he's going to have a pretty big role in this offense. You don't spend a second-round pick on a glorified gadget player. You get what I'm saying? Doesn't really make too much sense because if Buffalo didn't view James Cook as a legitimate weapon, that they didn't have a plan for him, and they just thought that he was just going to be a backup running back behind Devin Singletary, I don't think they would have used that selection on him. You could have went so many different directions, but I'm excited about this offense. I'm not expecting to drop off. Ken Dorsey is somebody who has a really good relationship and rapport with Josh Allen. They're pretty much on the same page when it comes to what concepts they love to run, what Josh Allen is comfortable with. And Ken Dorsey, of course, is probably going to add a couple of more wrinkles there. This offense isn't going to be exactly the same as Brian Daboll because every offensive coordinator, every head coach has their own philosophy. But he's probably going to run similar things that Daboll has ran in the past, but he's probably going to add his own wrinkle on things. So really excited about this Bills offense. Let me know how you guys are feeling about the Buffalo Bills offense going into the 2022 NFL season down in the comment section down below.